Good morning. This is my portfolio of best practices. I am going to start with a quick overview of 21st century best practices in the classroom. So we will begin with that. Then we're going to go with blended learning, project-based learning blended with social emotional learning. We will then go with social emotional learning by itself, individualized learning plans, and then formative and summative assessment strategies. So let's just dive right in. First of all, as I began doing research, I saw a lot of scholarly articles on best practices for blended learning rather than doing social emotional learning as a separate class. And they make a good case for that. So I want to share that at the onset. In best practices, 21st century teaching practices open gateways to larger global communities. And a key component in achieving this is by increasing students' global competencies through social emotional intelligence and cultural awareness. So, project based learning and interacting with others through technology and global learning creates students who are prepared to enter the 21st century world when they graduate. And that is not just through university, but also through high school classes. And I did a number of units last year where my students reached out and did learning components with students in England, Ukraine, and also France. So project-based learning and cooperative learning opportunities and individualized choices are a key component of a 21st century forward-thinking school. Units and lesson plans include SEL that's integrated and vital pieces of these lessons. So rather than separate units of study where students are rolling their eyes and it's like, okay, I already know this, here we go again, these lessons are integrated straight into a school's culture, voice, and fabric of every single lesson that we teach, as well as what is modeled through the school's culture and the fabric and the approach to learning. And it becomes much more effective. In a school that I taught in year before last, we used the Caring Hearts curriculum, which was very good, and the lessons were very good. But the students were very reluctant to even listen or participate. And it wasn't the lessons, it wasn't the way they were being taught. They just saw it as, here we go again. But when I took the lessons and put them into a work of literature and said, let's look at what we learned last week in Caring Hearts. Now let's look at this short story. What is this character doing and how can we apply it to the Caring Hearts lesson? They perked up because they didn't feel like it was being applied to them. So that's called learning by eavesdropping, and it was a very good technique. So teaching styles and delivery must change in order to match the learning needs and the lifestyles of a 21st century student. We've got to approach each day and every teaching unit with the determination to meet the learning needs of these students and how they are willing to listen. So best practices begin with lesson plans and units that are built around knowledge, and we're the guides, we're the collaborators, and rather than the designers of knowledge, we meet them where they are. So the role of the students is to learn and create while we guide and redirect. And of course, this is exactly what we learned in last week's lesson. So students want collaboration. They want to be hands-on. They want to be project-based. And this is all from things that we talked about last week. But I was really impressed with how it connects with this week's lesson. So I found this slide, and I was still thinking about social emotional learning, but the learning units in this slide for 21st century skills were so indicative of what they need to learn with social emotional learning. These are all things we all know. The learning skills are online, they're creative, they're critical thinking, their literacy, their life skills. So if we can build our students' learning and integrate them with these skills, we're on to something, which of course you already know. So the benefits to the student is these three sets of skills incorporate SEL learning, but they're broken down to illustrate how they should be integrated into our learning across the curriculum rather than isolated into modular approaches that signal the idea that SEL is a standalone skill in today's world, because it isn't. Like reading, like math, or a knowledge of the world's history, SEL is imperative to a student's success, and it's crucial for students to practice these skills in every aspect of their learning. And I saw it over and over in every scholarly article. So SEL lessons need to be incorporated into all teaching units and instilled into critical thinking, into problem-solving processes as they work on projects and as they learn to create solutions in creative ways on collaborative projects, so that they have these skills in real time and they have practiced them as they are doing their work. That's when it becomes, I believe, it gives them hands-on practice. So I think we have the right idea in our schools. I just think that many times our application is wrong. So this is the works cited page for 21st century classroom technology. This is an example of the best practices when we integrate SEL into the fiber of all learning projects. And I believe that we should be doing this all day long, and I don't think you would disagree, but I do think in the schools we are separating it many times. So there is a project that I have done many, many years. I began this project as a chairperson in Sarasota, Florida, before we ever moved back to Wichita, and it's called Empty Bowls. I have always had my students participate in some kind of a service project. I did this year before last when I taught at Hadley, and then of course in the Catholic Diocese it's a part of our curriculum. So this is Empty Bowls of Wichita, and students had a wonderful time with this. People make ceramic bowls. This was at Wichita State, and then it's a charity event. Different restaurants come in and they donate huge amounts of soup. People pick a bowl and then they go choose what type of soup they have, and they have a bowl of soup. So as our students participated in that, many aspects of social emotional learning are included, because they are connecting with people, they're becoming more self-aware. All of the different aspects of CASEL's SEL work within the framework of the Empty Bowls project. But it also works within the framework of a project-based learning unit, because they have voice and choice, they're authentic projects, they're forward-facing, they're reflective. So SEL is the best terminology and framework for the set of skills that PBL experts agree should be integrated into those projects. So as you look at this table, you can see how the SEL competencies can naturally embed into high-quality PBL projects as well. So on the left is the social-emotional learning, and on the right are the project-based learning skills. And we have to be very careful as educators to build project-based learning lesson plans that incorporate our standards, but the standards here and the project goals are on the right, and once again on the left are the SEL skills. So it's very easy to do this. We have to have control, we have to have formative testing and checkpoints all the way through a project-based learning project. So it is not like we just turn students loose. We don't. So the skill set for a teacher is to know how to set these units up, how to let the students feel that they're in control, while we are also there with them as their guides. But students have choices when they're working on project-based learning units, and we also build in our SEL skills at the same time. So they're engaged, they're motivated, they're learning, they're collaborative with their other peers. They're learning project-based learning, but they're also learning how to resolve problems, how to work together and be cooperative. So they are integrating many SEL skills as they go through these PBL processes as well. Best practices for project-based learnings is the lesson should be planned very carefully. We must meet our standards for the units. The units and planning have to be collaborative. They must be based on student interest and choice. We must do the formative assessments, and they must be frequent. We don't want our students to get off track with those. Because at the end, when they have the summative assessment, we want them to succeed and feel really good about them. But project-based learning is so empowering for our students. I did PBLs 3 different ones with my students last year, my seniors, as they did project-based learning with high school seniors, different name, in London, in Paris, and then they did a very large unit at the end of the year with students in the Ukraine. So it was just a wonderful experience. The overarching goals of SEL coupled with project-based learning is they must always look at development of self and social awareness, their relationship skills, how they are meeting their goals on their projects. Are they on track? I always have I have magnetic calendars that I give to each one of my groups, and they map it out so that they know that they're staying on track. But with SEL built in, they have unit goals as well. And it's so empowering to them when they see that they are on track with their own self-management, when they resolve differences, when they see what they are learning. So they have a goal on SEL, and then they say, hey, look, we had a disagreement. We were not peaceful with this. We used our critical thinking skills, and then they go to Bloom's taxonomy, and they look at that, they look at Maslow's hierarchy, and they say, this is where we were. We were down here and we were struggling. We were certainly not at our best. But when we resolved it, we felt peaceful, and we started performing at a much higher level of efficiency. And we were so peaceful when we were doing it. So it's so wonderful to see them write up a weekly report. Usually it's on Monday that they turn these in as a group. And they're promoting and talking about their decision making, how they manage themselves, their self-awareness. So with project management and with overarching goals, they are seeing the results, and they can be integrated very well. So the effects of students, they see how this relates to their future. They see what social emotional learning, what the power of it is, and they see how it's going to relate to their personal lives, They see it relate to who they're dating. They're using it to resolve conflicts there. So then they begin to see it relate to their relationships with their parents. It's just been beautiful. This is my reference list for my project-based learning information that I did. And now I'm going to move into a social emotional learning section on its own. One of the ways that I do teach SEL by itself is I talk to students, and I'm very real in my classes, but I have a picture that's hanging on the wall in my classroom, and it says, "You are more beautiful because you have been broken." These are two of my grandchildren. I have three. This is a picture of Gabriel in the St. Louis airport. Gabriel plays concert piano. And this is a picture of Isabella, my oldest grandchild, and she had just put some gold leaf on one of my fruit bowls. And I talk to students about how we will not get through life without some pain. And I relate that to a social emotional learning principle and self-awareness, self-healing. So my rationale for best practices on this is the world is not easy. Life is not easy. So social emotional learning, I tell them, is an integral part of our growth and our human development. If we prepare ourselves for that growth and for the processes that we will go through, we can then acquire and apply knowledge, skills, and attitudes that help us develop healthy identities, and it helps us adjust to challenges in life and maintain our emotions and achieve personal and collective goals. And this is one of the big picture principles. It isn't just to get through every day. It is to not just get through life. But what I talk to them about is in today's contemporary and changing world, we must be conscious and make conscious efforts to grow and expand our ability to adapt to change. We must be able to prosper in unique social environments and to respond rather than react to both social and emotional challenges, because we're going to have those. So as educators, when we teach our students ways to master these skills, we help them gain advantages in both their professional and their personal lives. And the Kansas State Department of Education sees this, and I am so happy about that. They recognize and they have mandated and emphasized that social emotional learning is a crucial component of student development and of academic success. And it's even more than that. It's not just students, it's life. So, number one, it's a critical component of a student's emotional growth, maturity, their development. You know, our children, when they went through the pandemic, when you even mention, "I understand," and you look at them in the eye and you say, "You know what? You went through something that no other group of children have gone through," they literally tear up. The tough football guys tear up because they feel heard. And that allows them to begin to heal. It was extremely difficult for even high achieving children. The children in public schools that have very little support at home, it was very difficult for. So we should be practical and supportive, learned. We should be very positive, through our social behaviors. We have got to help these children to understand and deal with how to deal with conflict and how to create restorative practices. We can't keep doing it for them. They have to learn to do restorative practices on their own. We need to model remediation for them. Sending them to the office is getting them out of our rooms. And sometimes you have to do that, but it is much more effective to say, class, we have a problem. How are we going to fix this? It has been much more effective. It was much more effective at Hadley for me to have two students sit down who had had a conflict and give them a poster and say, you guys, you had a problem here. You've got 30 minutes in this class. Make a poster to help other students figure out how to avoid this problem and how to fix it. And by the time that 30 minutes were up, number one, we had a poster to hang in the wall. But, well, no, that's number two. Number one, we had two children who were friends again. There wasn't a fight after school. So, we're teaching students to understand what it feels like to feel like another student feels. We're teaching them how to create ethical, individual growth. That is so important. People know how to feel sorry for each other. They do not know how to feel the feeling that another student is feeling. So that's when healing can take place. Understanding life's changing environment is crucial. I have it easy because I teach literature. So I can say, what is this character doing? How is this character feeling? Think of a time when you felt that feeling. So my job is easy. It's probably a little harder for a math teacher. These are all crucial life skills. They use them in academics, they use them in life, they will use them in their job. So this kept coming to me over and over and over again, how Maslow's hierarchy and Casel's social emotional learning wheel, these are inextricably intertwined. You can't really have one without the other. I teach these every day in every class. I'm teaching this when students are walking in and I'm saying good morning because I'm doing gut checks with these students. I'm seeing how they're self-managing as they're walking through the door. I'm seeing if they're discouraged. I'm seeing where they are. How's their self-esteem? I'm seeing how their relationship skills are when they're walking through the door. That's what we need to be doing as teachers. It should be part of our culture. So I'm so thankful that our school systems are seeing this. There are 5 areas of social emotional learning. It's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making. Those are all intertwined. Creating an awareness through journaling or whatever we want to do, talk about. These are great for bell ringers. But these SEL skills all relate to motivation for students. They relate to interpersonal relationships. They relate, if you're teaching middle school, they relate to the fight after school at 3:30. They relate to students' self-esteem and how they see themselves. So best practices is it's vital for our school districts, our administrators, our educators to integrate these quality lesson plans that have value and relate to the values and culture of the 21st century curriculum into active engagement strategies that are student-led and project-based with buy-in and ownership by the students. If we don't do that, they will be rolling their eyes and thinking, here it comes again. And while it may be a tall order, if we do otherwise, the perceived value of making students aware of this importance and value to their personal and professional success and happiness is much less. We've got to do this as a culture in our schools. Teachers have to treat each other that way. Teachers have to treat their students that way. The student they like the least is the one they need to love the most, because SEL impacts every area of contemporary life. We've got to live it as well as teach it. So self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship building, and decision making. I talk to this about my students. I have 10 copies in my room every single year. It's a book that is such a game changer. And it is The Power of Choice. And it just teaches students all day long of they can make good choices. So, this is my reference list for social emotional learning, best practices and teaching pathways of individualized learning plans. ILPs are so helpful to students. They're student-directed and forward-facing plans developed in collaboration with teachers, counselors, and parents. They document a student's academic and career interests for the purpose of assisting students in planning for their career and academic future. Now, this is another one of those areas that I saw students last year. We used Zello at the diocese. Students were rolling their eyes, let's get this over with, and they did not see value in this, when these should be so valuable to students. So this is another area that we should have been incorporating social emotional learning in. There was not enough integration, and teachers were not actively involved. I don't know who was teaching these students, but they were laughing at it instead of giving it the respect that it needed. So this is an area that I am going to pay much more attention to, whether I'm involved with it or not next year. This is an area I was weak in last year. It was someone else's problem. So I really appreciated this part of the unit this week. They work as both a process and a tool to assist students in identifying and exploring and articulating their post-secondary options. ILPs are also designed to assist students as they work to identify and define career interest and the skills they're going to need for career success. So what I saw some students doing last year was like playing with the system. Smart kids. They knew where they were going. They knew what they were doing. And so they were answering questions to make it come out and say, okay, you need to work. You need to be a cosmetologist, when they were going away to KU with a 4.0. They were just messing with it. I didn't understand. I just overheard the conversations. And that was money wasted for the system, for the school system. But more importantly, even than that, it was wasted effort on the students' part when they had a skill that was available to them. So in addition to growing SEL skills, as discussed in the previous 2 units, these students should be working with and trained and caring adults, so they're making intentional choices as they set their course for the future in terms of either college, vocational training, or job-seeking skills, so that when they leave, they've got an arsenal of tools available to them. So it was really, I mean, if I would have known then what I know now, I could have intervened. And it wasn't a lot of students, but if it's 5 students, it's too many. So individualized learning plans like Zello, I didn't understand who was in charge, what they were doing, or what I should have done. I should have taken more responsibility, because one of the greatest benefits of student-created ILPs is the conscious correlation and computation of future earning goals and post-secondary learning pathways. I've been thinking this last 4 days now, what if the students I heard doing that are struggling this coming fall because I didn't know what I should have known? What if it's even just a little something? So, skill building, the effects on teaching is teachers assist students in identifying the educational choices, learning tools, and technology that will help them meet their goals. The effects on the students is they have more tools and support to obtain help, but also learn independently and work at their own pace, taking responsibility for their learning. And the essential skills are equip students with the tools and skills they need to achieve learning best practices. There should be strong collaboration between the mentee and the mentor. Their SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, and use data to track student progress. And students have flexibility and leeway that they work on their plans, and check-ins and meetings should be regular and frequent. I believe that's this slide right here, best practices, is where I saw some breakdown last year. And I think that this is indicative of some of the students that I had last year. They thought they knew it all. They didn't think they needed help, especially on something as lowly as an ILP. But that it was not always true. I saw students get in trouble as well. This is my reference list. Now I'm going to talk to you about best practice and pathways for strengths in assessments. I am going to focus on ELL students for the most part. I am very concerned about my coming year. I don't know how I get myself in these situations. Department lead for ELL students. I don't know. But I am going to be a department lead at a school. They are all ELL students. I've been reading everything I can get my hands on. I have been reaching out to professors at Fort Hays, but I'm not an English as a second language teacher, although I'm sure trying to get prepared. So the evaluation or estimation of the nature, quality, or ability of someone or something is the proper use and approach to assessment should be to measure student learning and guide instruction and prepare and provide feedback. There's 2 main types, of course, formative and summative. I am going to do a lot of formative assessment with these students. We are going to be reading a lot. I have talked to my principal, and because normally I would have these students 45 minutes twice a day, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I have talked to her, and we are going to try to do blocks so that I have them for 90 minutes once a day. That will give me time, and I'm not breaking grammar and punctuation apart from reading. So we can read and do writing and grammar together because they belong together at this age. So I'm going to formulate statements of intended learning outcomes. They're going to be hanging up every day. Every single day we are going to know what we're working on, and then we are going to practice together. I'm going to have students working in small groups of 4 most of the time. We are going to select assessment measures for that day. And then I'm going to create experiences that lead them to my learning objective And every day or two, they're going to turn in writing, or we are going to read aloud, or we're going to be working on, okay, this is our vocabulary words for today. Now, let's use them in sentences. Let's talk. Um, let's look at their root words, whatever it is. But I want us to take slow, steady progress, but make progress every day, so that when we get to the end of a unit, we can really see, they can really see that they've made progress. I am especially concerned about my 8th graders because they're going to Bishop Carroll next year. And I know what they're going to be facing at Bishop Carroll. So we have a lot of work to do. Formative assessment. The effects on teaching is the purpose for those should be to provide information both to me, so I know what I haven't done well in terms of teaching, and to the students, so they know what they need to work harder on. Teachers need information and data so that we can use it to know what I need to reteach and areas that signal deficiencies. My students are 2 grades behind. They have not had a licensed English teacher at this school for 3 years. And the math and science teachers that have been teaching them have done a beautiful job, but they are still very far behind. Most of these students have one parent who speaks no English. It's usually the mother who stays home. The effects on the students are the students benefit from, in the moment, decisions teachers make to refine our instruction and strengthen our entire learning experience that day. I'm going to use Quizlets, Kahoots. We're going to have discussions. We are going to review. I have graphic organizers already prepared. I have the first 9 weeks of assignments for all 3 grades completely finished, so that all I have to do is then refine and adjust when I see that I need to do something differently. I had my assessment reference list up front, so I will send that to you separately. These are effects and considerations regarding assessments. As a teacher, what is my purpose for this assessment? Well, languages, culture, education, backgrounds of my multilingual students and learners. To what extent does my language program leverage multilingual learners' language and cultures? I have built in a lot of Hispanic writers. I've worked culture into the reading material. It will be more interesting and engaging for them, so that, and I'm very thrilled about this, August 15th to September 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month. We are doing, that month is going to be an entire unit on Hispanic artists, writers, small business owners in the city, and I have talked to my principal, leave it to me, but we are going to have an entire festival one Saturday and kind of really rejoice in the Hispanic Latino heritage. And I want my students, by that point, it's going to be towards the end of that month, they are going to make posters, and they're going to do poetry readings, they are going to speak from stage, and that is going to be part of their assessment, not when they're speaking from stage in front of a whole group, but in the preparation for it. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've met a lot of these students, and we've talked already during summer school. So do I want to provide feedback to multilingual learners to move their learning forward? What is my purpose, and how can I help them? So, I think I do. Yes, it's the Lars. This was a very, very good here now. For learning may begin with the teacher and the student conversations leading to collaboration in making mutual agreed upon learning goals. And then of learning is assessment of learning that is geared to determine their growth over time. So that would be summative. this was an article that I thought was especially helpful to me, and I apologize, I do not have the reference on this. Maybe I have it on the previous slide. My general references that were good all the way through, and I thank you very much for your perseverance as you listened to this. I'm sure it was too long. I had a lot to learn during this module. It was so helpful to me, and I appreciate you so much, Dr. McEwen. You have been a jewel to me. So thank you so much for listening to it, and I'll thank you in advance for your feedback.